Omagyanatimanasyansanansalanaslakya Chaksurunmilitanyena Tasmai Shigove Namah. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sinyavadi Paskachai Desatarini Srila Prabhupada Ki. So we discussed yesterday we discussed the first 12 verses of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and these first 12 verses, they were a summary of the teachings of karma. But now, in the next section, from 13 till 25, Lord Krishna will speak from the viewpoint of Jnana, Lord Krishna will cite Vedanta and will speak about 5 factors of action and 3 factors of knowledge. That's pure Jnana, then he will speak about knowledge in the 3 modes, and action in the 3 modes. And then from verses 26 till 40, he will speak about the worker in the modes, understanding about determination and happiness in the modes. And he will conclude that every living entity in this material world is under the modes. So that's the first part today, up to text 40, that this is the Jnana section. And yes, Krishna starts with citing authority. He's the supreme authority, but he starts with citing authority. So this authority is Vedanta. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Panchatani Mahabaho Karanani Nibodame Sankirtante Puktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam. So, Almighty Armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes of action for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn these from me. So, purport. A question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that a person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reactions of work? The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. So, the ultimate control is invested in the super soul. And Krishna consciousness acts are done under the direction of the super soul, and therefore they don't produce any future reaction, either in this life or after death. So the ultimate control is invested in the super soul. We heard that before in the 6th chapter, so one should act under the dictation of the super soul within. And then one acts spiritually. So of course we don't hear the voice of the super soul within because our consciousness is contaminated by these modes. But if we follow the instructions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, these are the same instructions as the instructions from the super soul within. Now, interesting in this part, so Krishna will show us that we are also the doer, but we are not the doer. That we are doing by desiring, but when it will really happen, one needs the sanction of the super soul. That I can desire to move my hand, but only it will move when the super soul wants it to move and allows it. So the Lord is a supreme authority, and he cites Vedanta. And if he cites that Vedanta says that there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action, and these 5 are listed in text 14. Yes, Gaurav Prabhu? Yeah, I'm hearing you. That, yeah.
Question that in a perfect Sastri for that how Buddhists get any reaction, and after that it is that God is actually the sanctions every action with reaction or anything that is happening. So in a way, it is should we understand like if any reaction that is coming to the life of a devotee, the super soul or God will stop that reaction. As he is stopping, he will stop it. In this manner, is it?
I didn't understand everything because sometimes you are breaking up. Can you speak a little closer to the mic? Or
Yes, is it better now?
yeah, somewhat.
Is it better?
It is better, yeah.
So, Maharaj, I wanted to ask here we come here the question that is getting put up whether why devotees don't get reaction, right? Why devotees don't get reaction to the action.
Yeah.
So and here it is mentioned like Prabhupada is telling like Supreme Lord is the ultimate sanction. He does the ultimate sanction of whether of any activities or any activities getting sanctioned by Lord. So can we understand the reaction that is going to come in the life of a devotee is will not get sanctioned by the Lord, and that's why they will not get acted. Is it in that manner it is going to happen? Why reactions will not act in this life of a devotee?
Not really. That if your reaction from past lives has to come, but what's mentioned here is about future reactions. If you will get reactions in the future, and that has been clarified in the 4th chapter already. There are three kinds of karma: karma, akarma, vikarma. Akarma is action in Krishna consciousness, is following the instructions of Krishna. And by this action there is no reaction. And because that is following the dictation of the Super Soul or the dictation of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, then you are not responsible for your action. You are nirmita matram. You are just an instrument in the action. That's like someone fights a war that if the soldier is all ordered to kill the enemy. If he kills the enemy, there is no punishment. But if he kills an enemy in peacetime, then he will be punished for, and then it's so-called murder. So that's the example of Srila Prabhupada gives, how this devoting Krishna consciousness does not get reaction. We get reaction by our desire. If we desire things for ourselves, if we desire things for ourselves, if we desire things for ourselves, then we get reactions. But if we desire for the pleasure of Krishna by following his instructions, then there is no reaction. So that's the point that is made here, and that will be clarified in the next. In verse 14, there are 5 factors of action, and it will be clarified how the karta is the doer. So we will go deeper in that now. Text 14. Adhistanam tata karta karanam sa pritachvidam vividas sapitachshasta daivim saivatra panchanam. So, the place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavors, and ultimately the supersoul, these are the 5 factors of action. Before we read the purport, I want to go with you over these 5. The first is the adhistanam. Adhistanam is the place of action, is the body. The body is made of material nature. It's composed of the modes of nature, material energy. It's nature. And who controls nature? Mayadrakshane prakriti chuchare chacharachanam. It's the super soul who is the superintendent of the modes of nature. The super soul controls the body. That we don't control the body. That we don't control our heartbeat. We don't control the cells in our body. We don't control the flow of blood in our body. We don't control the digestion. Our control is not much. We can move our hand maybe, yeah. And when material nature says you have to go to the toilet, you have to go. But otherwise, it's all controlled by nature, the body. And who controls nature? The super soul. Now, the second is the karta. The karta is the doer. So we are also the doer, but not the doer. We are not the ultimate doer. How does the soul is the soul the karta? By desiring. Because by desiring, we can connect with the material and with the spiritual energy. If we desire for the pleasure of Krishna, then we connect with the spiritual energy, and there is no reaction. If we desire to enjoy this world for our pleasure, for the pleasure of this body, then we perform karma or akarma. Akarma gives suffering, and karma gives good results. So-called good results on a material platform. So in that sense, we are the karta, the doer, but not the ultimate doer. We depend completely on the super soul. We can desire, but we must deserve it. And then the various senses. Senses is part of the body. It's also under control of the sun, of the body, of the super soul. And the many kinds of endeavors which come up into the mind, the plan making, the endeavors, that's a subtle body. That's the workings of the mind, the intelligence. That's also material nature. That's also under control of the super soul. Krishna said before that he explained before that Sarvasyam Ritishan Vishtamata Smiti Hanan Apamsa. For me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. That's also the remembrance is in the subtle body. That's also under control of the super soul. So you have three parts which are directly under control of the super soul here. The body, the senses, and the endeavors in the subtle body. And so the fifth factor is the super soul, and the second is the doer, that we are doing only by desiring. So we are one of the five factors. We are not the only doer. That is what Krishna is saying. That, and he will explain further. One who is intelligent knows this. Now, quickly going to the purport, see what Srila Prabhupada said. The word adhistanam refers to the body. The soul within the body is acting to bring out the results of activity and therefore is known as karta, the doer. So it's acting to bringing out the result of activity. Acting, that's, that acting is desiring. The soul does things in this world by becoming attached. Attachment is desire. So, the instruments of action are the senses. For each and every action, there is a different endeavor, but all one's activities depend on the will of the super soul who are seated within the heart as a friend. The Lord is the super cause, the Supreme Lord. So we are also the cause, one of the five factors, but the super cause is the Supreme Lord. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the super soul is situated within the heart, is naturally not bound by any activity. It's not bound. Not bound means no reaction of your activity. There's no binding effect. Because one acts as an instrument of the super soul. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. That's a big statement, because we are only the instruments. So Arjuna is not responsible for his action. He's an instrument in Krishna's hands. So everything is dependent on the supreme will, the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead. So that is essential information. 5 items here which will influence the performance and which influence the outcome of the activity. So the place, the performance, the senses, the endeavor, and the super soul. But all activities depend finally on the super soul, because super soul is the ultimate cause. Gaurav, will you have your hand up?
Yes, whereas I wanted to ask that Krishna also speaks about that everything is getting acted as a result of 3 modes of material nature.
Yep.
Also. So here also we can see the senses and the endeavors, they have also becomes affected with the modes of the material nature. So can you please explain? I think you have already explained. I don't know the relation between super soul and the 3 modes of material nature.
Yeah, that is explained in the 9th chapter, I think. Yeah, it's the verse Maya Dakshina Prakriti Chuchache Chachracha. There it is said, Krishna says, I am the superintendent of material nature. That so material nature works under the control of the super soul, and the super soul, the super soul is controlling the three modes of nature. Material nature means the three modes of nature. That the verse Maya Dakshina Prakriti, I don't find it here, but in the index. Yeah, it's 9:10. I was thinking 9:12, but 9:10. Yeah, 9:10. Purport. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. So the Supreme Lord is directing his energies. And the three modes of material nature are his energies. Yeah. The Supreme Lord is a supreme will and the background of this manifestation, but the management is being conducted by material nature. So Krishna controls material nature, is in the heart of everyone, and he knows, and Krishna has said before, I know past, present and future of all living entities. And he knows exactly what they have done in previous life and gives them reactions appropriate for each individual. That's a super consciousness. And Krishna organizes that through the modes of material nature. Everyone gets his reactions. And that's combined with our desires. Because we can desire things in this world, but we can only attain the results of that according to the result, the reaction of our past activities. That will allow that or not. And Krishna knows that. We cannot imagine what an intelligence and what an organization Krishna has behind it. That he has said before that in the 5th chapter, it speaks also about that. In the 5th chapter, there 5:12, I think. Here. In 5:14, he said, Na kartit van na karmani lokasyo chichachipabu, na karma vala samyugam svavastu bhavartate. The embodied spirit master of the city, of this body, does not create activities, does not induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So that means that everything is done. Well, we do not create actions. We desire, but action is done by material nature. and it's all enacted by the modes of material nature. So the soul does nothing in this world, only desiring. But Krishna says then, 5:15, Nadadeka chit papam nacheva sukritam vipu, ahyani napatam khanante namoyantiyantava. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covered their knowledge. So it's not Krishna who creates a certain situation in this life. It's us. It's just a reaction on our previous lives. And Krishna says, I'm not responsible for that. I created a system. That's okay. The system is, if we come to this material world to enjoy what is Krishna's position, then Krishna says, okay, you want to enjoy, good. But the system is, if you want to enjoy, you have to suffer. In the material world, if you want to enjoy, then it's at the expense of other living entities. And they have to suffer for it. And you have to pay with that for suffering. And that's the material world. You want to eat, you need food. Food is killing living entities. It's at the expense of others. You go on vacation, you have a good time, but so many people suffer because they have to serve you. So that's the point. Krishna says, I created a system. I want you to get a reaction. Je sam spasiabuga, dukyon evate atyantavanta kaunte nati shuramate Buddha. You want to enjoy? The sages say, then you have to suffer. And that's a system Krishna sends up. And the sages say that don't do it, it's not worthwhile, because it's all temporary. So Krishna is all good. He does not want us to be in this material world. He wants us to go back to the spiritual world and give up that game of action and reaction. So that's the broader picture related to other verses in the Bhagavad Gita. It's important that you see this connection between these verses. Bhagavad Gita is very deep. To understand this one verse, you cannot disconnect it with what I've said before. Nothing new is in the 18th chapter. That's there in the previous chapters, what's discussed here. So it's important to see the connection between the sections of the 18th chapter and what has been previously explained in Bhagavad Gita. If we go to these verses in the 18th chapter, you should notice the verses of the previous chapters where Krishna says all these things. Of course, Bhagavad Gita is very deep. If you see a few connections in the beginning, it's good. But I'm teaching Bhagavad Gita for 30 years, and I get a little feeling for it. Although it's an ocean without depths. Okay, so this is the 5 actions. Yes, Radha Gadadhar, please speak.
Is my voice audible?
I'm hearing you, yes.
Maharaj, like here it's mentioned that different things that are the 5 factors of action. But like we also hear, am I audible, Maharaj?
I'm trying to hear, yes.
I'm really sorry, I guess my mic is not that good. Maharaj, like we hear that before one is born, 5 things are already decided. Time of birth, time of death, amount of money is going to earn, amount of happiness is going to get, amount of distress one is going to get.
Yes.
Yes, so if these five things are already decided, then where is the scope of endeavor?
Okay, that's good. That's an intelligent question. Then the point is, people try to become happy in this world, but their happiness is predestined. It's already there. So why should you work very hard and endeavor for all these things? That it's useless. Krishna says, one who lives for the pleasure of the senses lives for nothing, because you live for the body, not for the soul. And that's the problem. So Krishna is looking how we are going to deal with it. That are you going to play the same game and again endeavor and still trying to be happy in this world? That's the problem. Prahlad Maharaj said, your happiness, your unhappiness starts when you try to become happy in this world. And your real happiness starts when you stop trying to become happy in this world. And that's the lesson we have to learn. That what we should endeavor for is not that happiness in this world. We should endeavor to get out of it. And that's Krishna consciousness. And that's following Krishna's instructions. And then there are no reactions. And your previous reactions are burned to ashes, we heard in the 4th chapter. Does that help?
Yeah, Maharaj, it does help. And Maharaj, one thing I also want to learn, that like we hear of the word akal mrityu, untimely death.
No, I didn't understand that last word you said.
Like we hear akal mrityu, untimely death.
Untimely death.
So, Maharaj, I mean, and in such a case, we hear that the person has to take rebirth to complete the time, that time that the desired time it wasn't complete.
Yeah.
So, Maharaj, in that case, I mean, so in case of that untimely death, I mean, what is the factor of that action, that result that we are suffering, that a person gets an untimely death?
Yeah. So we are all, that's in the Bhagavatam, we have all by our karma allotted a certain span of time. But you can shorten your life by doing sinful activities. And one of the greatest sinful activities is taking your own life. That then you get the body of a ghost for the rest of the time you have normally to get out. Because it's an unnatural death. So then you have a time, you get a ghost body for the rest until your normal time of death. You get a ghost body. And then people want still to enjoy and try to possess other bodies and cause other people trouble in the form of ghosts and so on. And anyway, these details are all in the Bhagavatam. You can learn that this is all there, due answers. But that's good. Your questions show that you have interest to go deeper into that. And that's very healthy for making spiritual advancement, asking such questions. Good. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Mother Priya Satyavan, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I don't know how relevant my question is here, I'm just curious to know, do you ever get liberation from being a ghost, or do you ever get one more chance to, you know, complete your life once you become a ghost? Or, I don't know how relevant it is, but I'm just curious
Yeah,
to know.
so I explained you are normally a ghost until the time of your normal natural death. because you are predestined to have a certain span of life, but you have shortened it by suicide. Then the space between, for that time, you get a ghost body, and then you take birth again. So that is the principle here. But sometimes, like if you have that in your family, that someone has committed suicide or so on, then yeah, get the devotees together and do kirtan for that person, and he will be liberated. Kirtan and serving prasadam afterwards. That's serving prasadam to the Brahmins pleases Krishna. And devotees are higher than Brahmins if they become mature. So that's what we can do about it. Is that okay? Good.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So now Krishna will explain text 15. Sarirvan manobiryat karma prarabdhate nara jnanam va viparitam va panchete tasya hetava. Whatever wrong, right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind and speech is caused by these 5 factors. So right and wrong actions, that was 15, right? Yeah, 15. Okay. Right work is done in terms of prescribed directions in the scriptures, and wrong action is done against the principles of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. But it starts with the soul desiring it, and then material nature does the rest. Of course, the spirit soul's consciousness is polluted by these 3 modes, and therefore influenced by these 3 modes. But this influence is very strong in ignorance and passion. In goodness, when one is in goodness, then one can start to use one's free will, really. But if one identifies with the mind, I am the mind, which we are not, but one thinks one is the mind, one follows the mind, one is lost. Then there is no free will. So these things should be understood, and by that right and wrong work are performed against the scriptures or according to the scriptures. That is caused by these 5 factors. And then Krishna says, Tatraivam satikartaram atmanam kevalam tuya pasyata krita buddhitvan na sa pasyati durmabhi. Therefore, one who thinks himself the doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. So what Krishna is saying here, you are only one of the 5 factors. If you think you are everything doing, then that's not intelligent. Then one cannot see things as they are, Krishna says. So, 17. Yasyanam krito bhavo buddhya yasyana lipyate hatvapi saimalokan nahanti na nibadshate. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills in this world, is not killed, nor is he bound by his actions. We heard that before, like the Padma, the lotus. It's water, A drop of water does not impregnate in the leaf, but it rolls, so it's not affected. So no reaction if we follow Krishna's instructions, if we are his instrument. So the message is, we should not be ignorant that thinking ourselves the only doer, but there is the influence of the super soul through material nature. So then we have 17, one is not affected. In this verse, Lord Krishna informs Arjuna that the desire not to fight arises from false ego. Arjuna taught himself to be the doer of action, but he did not consider the supreme action within and without. Because Krishna will, after hearing Bhagavad Gita, be the full instrument of Krishna. Then he has understood. I'm not the doer, that Krishna will empower me through these modes, he will, through his spiritual energy. But one who knows the instrument of work, himself as the worker. But one who knows the instrument of work, himself as the worker, and the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything. So we desire, we are the instrument of work. And Krishna is a sanctioner. He empowers, he arranges the situation, everything. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, and a lack of Krishna consciousness. Personal activity. Anyone who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Super Soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though killing does not kill, nor is he ever affected by the reaction of such killing. When a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he is not subjected to be searched. But if a soldier kills on his own personal account, then he is certainly judged by the court law. So that I have already explained. And now, these are 5 factors of action. But there are 3 factors of knowledge, Krishna will now explain. 3 action factors of knowledge. Jnanam, jnanam, paichyata, trivida, karma sodhana. Karanam, karma karteti, trivida, karma sangha. If you look at the Sanskrit, jnanam and jnayam, these were 2 of the 6 factors, of 2 of the 6 topics in the 13th chapter. These 6 topics in the 13th chapter were kshetra, kshetrajya, jnanam, jnanam, prakriti, purush. So we see this is connected with the 13th chapter, the jnana section. So, translation. Knowledge, the object of knowledge and the knower are 3 factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are 3 constituents of actions. So that's interesting that there are these 3, the knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower of actions. And like, that is in everything we do. That's, I'm going to take prasad, I'm on my way. So I'm the knower, I'm going. The object is a prasad, and the knowledge is how to get it. So that's why everything we do has these 3 factors So, and when inspiration for work comes from spiritual activities, if the inspiration comes from spiritual activities, there is no reaction. But these three motivate the action. But if the motivation is to please Krishna, then no reaction. So three factors of action. There are three kinds of impetus for daily work, Srila Prabhupada said. The knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. You find that in everything. First, one has to undergo a psychological process of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called the impetus. Otherwise, one will not do it. When the inspiration is there, then the worker is there, then the activity will take place with the help of the senses, including the mind, which is the center of all senses. That's all Jnana analysis. So now, text 19. Jnanam karma sakartasya trivide guna vedata pokshate guna sankyane yatavakshinutanyapi. According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge, action, performer of action. Now hear of them from me. So we will hear now in the modes about knowledge in the modes, action in the modes, the worker in the modes. And we will hear about understanding in the modes, determination in the modes, and happiness in the modes. And Krishna will conclude with text 40, everything is under these modes. So we will go over it, that first, knowledge in different kinds of knowledge. So knowledge, action, and performer. We will discuss them now in the modes, these three kinds. Sarva bhuteshu yenaikam bhavam afyamikshate avibhaktam vibhakti sutatyam vidisatvikam. The knowledge by which one undivided nature the knowledge by which one undivided nature, spiritual nature, is seen in all living entities, though they are divided in innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. It's close to what we have heard before. Vidya vinaya sampane gamna kava astini sunsev svapakacha pandatat samadas. One sees the soul in the heart of a Brahman, an elephant, a dog eater, a dog. So one sees one spirit soul in every living entity. That is in the mode of goodness. That's seeing things as they are. One sees it in a demigod, a human being, an animal, a bird, a beast, an aquatic, or a plant. It is the mode. That's the mode of goodness, seeing the spirit soul there. So one should see the superior nature within the inferior nature. In everybody, and if one sees that in everybody, that's the mode of goodness. The living entity is imperishable, although the bodies are perishable. So that is knowledge in the mode of goodness. Of course, in the mode of passion, that's different. Pritakvena tutatsyanam nana bhavan pritakvidam. The knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, one should understand to be in the mode of passion. So that's people in the world. They see mostly, they have the concept the material body is a living entity. And they think when the body is destroyed, the consciousness is destroyed, the person is destroyed. That's in the mode of passion. So according to such knowledge, consciousness is temporary, or else there are no individuals, but there are, or something, there are all-pervading souls or something like that. And this body is a manifestation of temporary ignorance, so many speculations. Such conceptions are in the mode of passion. Knowledge in the mode of passion leads to to a variety of concocted religion and philosophies, which we have heard in the 17th chapter. But knowledge in goodness, that there is a spirit soul in everybody, is an understanding of the absolute truth, but it leads to an impersonal understanding in the mode of goodness, not the real absolute truth. That is only a part of the absolute truth, Brahman. But now, the third one, 22, that is knowledge in ignorance. Yat Krishna Vadekasmin, Karye Saktamahaitukam, Atavarta Vadalpamsha, Tantama Samudaritam. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work and as all in all, without knowledge of the truth and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. So, for a person in the mode of ignorance, God is money and knowledge means how to enjoy the senses. That's the mode of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada elaborates on it in the purport. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or the scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. The knowledge of the ordinary animals, that's knowledge like the ordinary animals. They have knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and so on. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond the body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. Knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is the product of the mode of passion, and knowledge concerned with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So that's knowledge in the three modes. And now we will hear about action in the three modes. Niyatam sangarai tamaragat vishatakritam afala prapshana karma yatatsat kamuchate. Action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, without desire for fruitive result, is said to be in the mode of goodness. Without attachment, without love or hatred, and no desire for fruitive results. That's in the mode of goodness. So that's karmani vadakarsti mafalishkadatsana. You are not entitled to the results. So we desire, without desire for the fruits. So that's 23. Srila Prabhupada writes, regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of different orders and divisions of society performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, are performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme. Without self-satisfaction or self-gratification are called actions in the mode of goodness. Good. Now action in the mode of passion. That Yatu kamepsuna karma sankarna fapuna kriyate baulayasam tatraja samudaritam. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a false sense of a false ego is called action in the mode of passion. That's action to gratify the senses. One identifies with the body. I just read the last verse and then we will answer the question. Anubandam kshamim sam anapeksha sapausam moat arabate karma yatatama samuchate. Action performed in illusion in disregard of scriptural injunction without concern for future bondage, for violence or distress caused by to others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So one has to give account of one's actions to the state of the agents of the Supreme Lord, Yamadutas. So that's for sure. That now, why does Krishna here speaks in the beginning about these five factors of action? That is to convince us that we are not only the doer, not the only doer. Krishna is the doer, as controller of material nature, but we are secondary doers. If the doer wants that it happens, it will happen, otherwise not. So these five factors are the true causes of action. The super cause is the super soul, is sanction. So we are also the doers. Our activities come from our free will to do it. But our endeavor is not independent. It's not the independent cause of the action. And now that in verse 23, I want to go back for a moment here, 23. The action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, love and hatred, and without desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness. But if you read the purport, Srila Prabhupada, regulated occupational duties as described in the scriptures in terms of different orders of division of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, are performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction, self-gratification, are actions in the mode of goodness. Here in the purport we can understand how Krishna is equating, or Srila Prabhupada is equating the mode of goodness here in the purport with Krishna consciousness. That because he says they are performed in Krishna consciousness. That's interesting. So we must understand from this section and the five factors of action, the three factors that instigate, of knowledge, which that's we can also from verse 16 that 16, can go to 16 again. What we can learn from 16, that therefore one who thinks himself the only doer, not consider the five factors, is not intelligent. So we can see and think about what are the symptoms of one considering himself the doer. that the symptoms are that he considers himself the controller of all the, of the body, of the senses, of the mind. But he's not the only controller. So these are symptoms of false ego also. That you must remember the analogy of the soldier that who fights for his country in a war is not responsible. Otherwise, it's murder. That and also we heard before about Varnashram ashram, especially in the 4th chapter. But all these points in the mode of goodness are related to Varnashram. But that's the purpose of Varnashram, to bring us to goodness and worship the Supreme Lord with with the results of one's activities. And, so for us personally, we must think about that. Am I acting under the instruction of the Lord within? That's a good question. And then you have these categories of action, these 5. How is this relevant to us? So we must see how to apply that in our lives. Good. Yes, Gaurav Prabhu.
Maharaj, I wanted to ask, the persons who are in the mode of passion, it is said that they are working with great effort to gratify their desires from a false ego, from a sense of falsity. And also in ignorance we find it is like disregard of scriptural injunction. So does that mean the persons who are in the mode of passion, they are doing according to scriptural injunctions like dharma, artha, kama, moksha, those people are coming under mode of passion or they will come under mode of goodness?
You have different kinds of worker in the mode of passion. That they work all for the same thing. They want to enjoy. That's true. But you have workers who try to enjoy by following the scriptures. These are called the karma kandis. And they are following the scripture for their enjoyment. But in the mode of passion, there are also those who don't know what's scripture, what's good and bad. And there, it depends on their actions. Are they in agreement with the scriptures or not agreement with the scriptures? So they will get reaction accordingly. And the mode of ignorance, of course, they don't consider right and good. They all just want to enjoy that. So that was. But yes, but all of 3, they go to Yamaraj for their reactions. All of them, all the impassion, all those in ignorance. The Krishna conscious person does not go to Yamaraj. That's different.
Maharaj, can I ask a related question?
Yeah.
So you said that mode of ignorance and mode of passion both goes to both people. They go to Yamraj, right? And mode of goodness, they go directly to respective lokas where they belong to.
The mode of goodness, first, Krishna explains that these modes are always fighting with another. So there is no pure mode of goodness. So if one does a theoretical understanding, in practice everyone under the modes goes to Yamaraj because they need to get reactions. But Yamaraj is concerned with punishment for those who have deviated from the scripture. So if one does not atonement for that, one has to go to Yamaraj. That's explained in the 6th canto. Because Yamaraj gives the reactions for previous life and prepares them for their new body, prepares their subtle body. And the subtle body gets already the form of the next body. That's all arranged through Yamaraj. Yes.
Okay, so Maharaji, if you think about people who are doing their prescribed duties and they are trying to become Krishna conscious, or in a very subtle way, or maybe first or second step of this journey. And there is an oscillation between material world and spiritual world. I'm sure people go through that oscillation. So, I'm not sure that across this journey, how many years it takes for anyone to change their mode from passion to goodness in a pure Krishna conscious way. So where does it lead people like those, or maybe I'm talking about myself, that you keep oscillating between material and spiritual world, and I think this question I keep asking in anything that I can relate to.
Yeah,
so can you throw some light?
It's not so simple because there are many factors here. And you have in the 6th chapter, it is said, the devotee who has a short practice and is not yet purified, he goes to the heavenly planets. So he does not go to Yamaraj. But a short practice of Krishna consciousness means following the 4 regulative principles and trying to engage sincerely in devotional service. If it's oscillating, as you say, sometimes chanting and sometimes not chanting, and forget Krishna and then again, and then go from one to another, then for their sinful activities they will go to Yamaraj.
No, Maharaji, oscillating, I'll clarify oscillating. Following 4 regulative principles is a given, right? So that happens. But then you oscillate because you are in the material world following your prescribed duties. So there are so many things that pure Krishna conscious people will not do. So there are so many things, not those 4 regulative principles, but just a normal material world that we live in. That is very difficult. You oscillate between the two, right? You get attached to your work, you feel passionate, then the other day you feel no, there should be detachment. So that kind of oscillation, not following these 4 regulative principles issue, that is a given.
Krishna says, then you take birth again, and you get a certain percentage of realization of Krishna consciousness. Verse 240, Bhagavad Gita. In the purport, Krishna says that if you have Srila Prabhupada writes, if you have 2%, then in your next life you will start with 2%. But that does not mean if you have 2% practice Krishna consciousness and 90% material activities, and some of them were sinful, you go to Yamaraj. That no one must be sincere in spiritual life. And if one is sincere, the short practitioner goes to the heavenly planets and come back and get a new chance. And the long practitioner, he is take birth in a family of pure devotees and can finish his work in Krishna consciousness. So that's what Krishna says in the 6th
Okay.
chapter. But if one does willingly sinful activities, that's an offense against the holy name and is punishable. So we have to be careful with that, not to do these things. Spiritual life goes up and down, that's right. But it goes up and down. Sometimes we are enthusiastic, not so enthusiastic. But gradually, at the whole, it goes up. But we go to crisis up and down while going up, and that's normal. That's the purification of the heart. That's not without any pain. Is that okay?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, then it's now 8:15. We will have a pause now till 20:30. So in 13 minutes, we resume again. Hare Krishna, thank you. Hare Krishna, so we will continue with verses 26 to 40. Lord Krishna will now continue his description how all activities are controlled by the three modes of nature. So, verses 26 till 28, he will speak about the worker, the performer of action. And verses 29 till 32, he describes one's understanding under the modes. And then 35 till 30, 33 till 35, one's determination under the modes. And then from 36 till 39, happiness under the modes. He will conclude, everyone in the material world is under these modes. So we will mainly read the verses here, 29, 26 until 28. I read the 3 verses which are about the worker. Mukta Sangananam Badi Dristutsaha Samamvita Sitya Sityo Nivikara Karta Satvika Uchate. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. So that is also applicable in our Krishna consciousness, that we remain enthusiastic despite everything, despite every challenge, despite every so-called discouragement in this world. We remain fixed in Krishna consciousness. That is a great lesson to learn. So this was 26. Therefore, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, a person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the modes of material nature. Transcendental means he's not influenced by it. There are so many things come into the mind, but he's not influenced by the mind, because he fixes his mind on Krishna. He has no expectation for the results of the work entrusted to him. So no expectations. That's our problem in this world. We expect so many things, and when they don't happen, we come frustrations. But a Krishna conscious person has no expectations for himself. That is not proud of his actions. He is not influenced by false ego. Is that because all this happiness and this stress, this honor, this dishonor, it's all for the body. So there's nothing to do with this world. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He's always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failures. Failure is equal in both happiness and distress. These are great lessons to learn from us. Always trying to do that. Trying to be equal in happiness and distress. Not easy. That if one is strongly influenced by the modes of nature. It's 27. Raga karma flapepso lupto im satmako chuchi harsa sokam vitakarta rajasa parikirtita. The worker who is attached to the work and the fruits of work desires to enjoy those fruits, who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. So this person suffers a lot because he's simply concerned with trying to make this world comfortable. Therefore he's generally greedy, is that he thinks that whatever I gain in this world, it's never to be lost, it's mine. That he's envious of others, that he does everything just for sense gratification. They do not care whether their actions are pure or impure, that is happy when his work is successful and is depressed when it's not. That's the worker in the mode of passion, the worker in the mode of ignorance. Ayukta paketa stapta sato nas kritiko lasa pisata dirya sutrisha kartatamasa uchate. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. So they don't care for the injunctions of the scripture. And they usually engage in work not to be done. So they work according to the modes of nature, not according to scripture. Mostly they are not nice people. They're always cunning, expert in insulting others, lazy, morose, procrastinating. And now Krishna will explain about determination in the modes. Determination, 3 kinds of determination. Pravitimsa, nivritimsa, karyakari, labai, baya, baye, bandhamoksam, sayaveti, bodhisa, partasatviki. That a son of Pritha, that understanding that by which one knows what ought to be done and what not to be done is, or what is to be feared and not to be feared, what's binding, what is liberated in the mode of goodness. So this is action in knowledge that's under the direction of the scriptures. They know pravritti nivritti, what's to be done, what's not to be done. That one who does not know the scriptural directions becomes entangled. So one must discriminate with one's intelligence. And there's those in the mode of passion, they cannot distinguish between religion, irreligion, action that should be done and that should not be done. That's the mode of passion. And those in the mode of ignorance, they go just in the wrong direction. They do the opposite. They think that religion is irreligion and irreligion is religion, that they go into the wrong direction. That, they think truth to be untruth and accept truth as truth, untruth as truth. In all activities, they simply take the wrong path. And now, determination in the modes. This is in the mode of goodness. And that's the determination we also need to perform devotional service. O son of Prita, that determination which is unbreakable, which is unsustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life and senses, determination in the modes, determination in the mode of goodness. So the word avyabhicharinya is very significant, for it indicates that the persons who are engaged in Krishna consciousness are never deviated by any other activity. So that's important. We must 24 hours a day engage in Krishna's service. Never deviate. Never deviate like those in passion. Their determination holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification. That's passion. Dharma, Artha, Kama. First three of the goals, materialistic goals. And then that is determination in ignorance. That means practically no determination. And that determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness and illusion, such unintelligent determination, O son of Prita, is in the mode of darkness. Here it's mentioned that one who sleeps too much is in the mode of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada said, we should sleep 6 hours, that's sufficient. That if you are in a healthy condition, that should be no problem, unless you overeat or something. Text 36. 36. Now we are going to hear about 3 kinds of happiness in the modes. That first, the happiness in goodness. Happiness in goodness means that, that which in the beginning may just be like poison and at the end just like nectar, and which awaken one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So we experience that also. In the beginning we come to Krishna consciousness and you have to regulate your life, you have to go more early to bed and get early up. And that's my Guru Maharaj said when he joined Mayapura in 1976, then yes, he had not a habit to get early up, and in the morning he could not get up, but he said the devotees were so kind to lift him out of his sleeping bag in the morning. So it was like poison in the beginning, but now he said, 50 years later, you go to bed and you get up before your alarm clock. It becomes natural to get up early, but in the beginning it's like poison. Yes. Then we have 38. That happiness which is derived from contact with the senses and with their objects, and which appear nectar at first and poison at the end, is said to be of nature of passion. So this passionate, we find that in the relationship between man and woman, a young man and a young woman come together, and they are very passionate about each other. That at least, I'm not speaking about devotees here, but they come together and they love each other. I love you so much. And then 3 years later, I hate you. It's turned at the other side. So in the beginning, it's happiness, and then 3 years later, it's poison. That it turns quickly into poison. That so this sensual relationship based on the body, that's in the mode of passion. And then that happiness, which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning and the end, and arises from sleep, laziness, illusion, is set by the nature of ignorance. So, Srila Prabhupada comments, there is no happiness in ignorance. There is only distress, both in the beginning and the end. So, Krishna concludes, yes, there is no being existing either among the demigods or the higher planetary system which is free from these three modes. So we can learn from this, like we can learn from the worker in goodness to remain always enthusiastic despite everything. That we should not be a worker in ignorance. We should not procrastinating, delay them. That's the mode of ignorance. We can see in ourselves that we have the mode of ignorance and get it out of your life. That we should know what is binding, what is not binding. That these three types of happiness, I think. You have all realized that probably one way or another. So now we will start the next session. That in the next session, first Krishna goes back from the beginning, goes back to doing one's duty in the varnashram, and he speaks about first about by doing one's duty one can worship the Lord. So that's karma yoga. And then after that, Lord Krishna explains that one can give up these duties if one purifies his intelligence and comes to higher knowledge. The knowledge of the soul, the knowledge of Krishna, the knowledge of our relationship. And then we become qualified to perform pure devotional service, attain liberation, and then we can know Krishna. So that's what this section from 41 till 55 is about. And this evening we will discuss till 48. And that's a part of the varnashram system, doing one's duty. So in 41, Krishna start to explain the qualities of a Brahman. So first he says, Brahmana kshatriya vishon sudranam saparantapa karmani pravivaktani svabhavapavaver kunai. The Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras are distinguished by the qualities of their own work in accordance with the material modes or chastise of the enemy. So in the age of Kali we know they are not there, but Krishna is teaching us we have to work according to our psychophysical nature. And we may have characteristics mostly from Sudras, but we have also some may have some Vaishya qualities, but not pure. Others are Kshatriyas, have more the passion to fight, and others are intellectual. So these gradations are naturally in society. And he speaks first about the Brahmins. 42. Samadamastapachacham shantiaravam evasha kyanam vijnanamastakam vamakamasvabhavacham. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmins work. And then the Kshatriyas. Saryam teotati daksham yudhisap apalayanam dhanam ishvarabhavasas kshatram karmasvabhavacham. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity and leadership are natural qualities of work of the Kshatriyas. And then the next verse discusses the Vaishyas and the Sudras. Pshiko rakshavaniyam vaishkamasvabhavacham parishayatmakam karma sudrashabhisvabhavacham. Farming, cow, protection and business are natural work for the Vaishyas, and for the Sudras they are labor and service to others. And now Krishna says, by following these qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now here, how this can be done. And now, 46, we will hear how this can be done. Mother Queenie.
Maharaj, every time we hear on the practical note that a devotee is that one, we should not attach to the nature of the service, we should be attached to the seva only, service only. So, whatever service we get, we should do that wherever we need. Wherever there is a need of us that we can serve there. So, Maharaj, my question is that we heard about the qualities of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishnava, Shudra. So, Maharaj, how to do think then like one is like a Shudra and how to discriminate or something like if we are doing everything.
Yeah, that discrimination is, like I said, it's a little mixed in Kali Yuga, but your nature can be known by what you like and what you are good in. Guna and karma. Guna is what you like, but the karma is your capacity to do it. You may like to do things, but if you don't have the capacity, it will not work. You must have both guna and karma, and you must search it in yourself. And those who know you, they know probably what you are good in. And they can engage you according to your nature. It's important to be engaged according to your nature. Then you will be materially feel satisfied, and then you can do it for a long term. Sometimes we have to do things which are not according to our nature. And if the temple president says, "Oh, can you clean the floor, please?" and you answer, "That's not according to my nature, I'm not going to do that." No, you have to do that also, but not only that. Your main activity should be according to your nature. That's important. It's like in your astrological chart, an astrologer can see what's your nature. What's your lagna and what your planets are. And in my chart, Saturn and Jupiter are in Sagittarius. Means Jupiter means I'm a teacher, and Saturn means renunciation. I'm a teacher of renunciation, which is Krishna consciousness. And in my fifth house, and Mercury is in his own house, that Gemini. That means great intelligence, good communicator. So I'm teaching, and that is good for my teaching. That makes me a good teacher, gives me the ability to teach and teach Krishna consciousness. So that's my nature, and that's what I'm doing. And I feel satisfied with it. And so everyone has a certain nature in what is good. And that you have to find out. And you have to act according to that nature. And that's material Svadharma. We heard before in the Gita about material and spiritual Svadharma. First, in the beginning, you must have your act according to your material Svadharma. If you become purified, then you can act on your spiritual Svadharma. Yeah, you can do anything. But not as you are not purified. Then you must act according to your nature. And that's the essential teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And that can bring you to perfection, Krishna says. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings, who is all-pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. So you do your work for serving Krishna under the guidance of the spiritual master. And that brings you to perfection. So does that help?
Yes, Maharaj, as we see that there are acharyas who did menial service to their masters. So that service, if I'm just seeing the qualities that come into the category of Shudra, but they are all the Brahmanas. So is it okay, Maharaj? Acharya can also perform the duty like a Shudra?
Yeah.
Any activity like a Shudra?
Well, that's the point. Kala Yuga Samudbhava. So everyone in Kali Yuga is born Sudra, practically. There are no qualified Vaishyas, no qualified Kshatriyas or Brahmins. It's not there. That because one is Brahman by quality. By quality. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. That unless one has the qualities of a Brahman, is not a Brahman. But by becoming a devotee, first we come to the liberated platform, and then we come to the transcendental platform. The platform of a Brahman is liberation, and we go beyond it. Then you develop also the qualities of a Brahman. Therefore, that's the scriptural basis to give Brahman initiation to one who has second initiation. Second initiation means that the spiritual master thinks or observes this devotee, this disciple is a good person to come to the platform of liberation. That's the Brahma Bhuta platform, which will be discussed, which we will discuss next tomorrow. So, of course, that means a Vaishnava who is advanced is also a qualified Brahmin, because he has learned to live in a mode of goodness, but he has the qualities. But then you have the quality, you have the point of the Varnashram, the Brahmins in the Varnashram, they have a specific function. The Brahmins in the Varnashram, they perform sacrifices, they teach, and so on. That's another thing in the Varnashram, but we are not working in the Varnashram. But in the Varnashram, that's something different. There you have a task division and so on. In our movement, you don't have that. That if one is advanced, you get second initiation and you get the qualities of a Brahmin. But that does not mean you are a Brahmin in a Varnashram. That's something else. One becomes Brahmin by...
Maharaj, sorry, Maharaj. Maharaj, it's coming like, if someone is a Shudra, can't that person take Brahman initiation because he doesn't have the Brahman qualities? And I have read in the Bhagavatam that the first quality of Shudra even to be, he is very clean. And I'm confused, like cleanliness is a quality of a good, mode of goodness. So both, I'm just getting confused.
Yeah, of course, the Sudra, if the Sudra becomes purified and he gets all the qualities of a Brahman, they are mentioned, it's Samodamastapasya, Kshantir, Ayavamevasya. If one has all these qualities, then one can get second initiation. But cleanliness is only one aspect. It's only one aspect. But these qualities, they develop automatically in a devotee. That's does that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Then 47. Yeah. 46. I want to read a part of the purport. So it is said, by worship of the Lord with the souls of all beings, who is all pervading, one can attain perfection through one's own work. In the purport, his external and internal energy is all pervading, therefore one should worship the Lord with his energies. Generally, the Vaishnava devotees worship the Lord with his internal energy. His external energy is a perverted reflection of the internal energy. The external energy is the background, but the Supreme Lord, by the expansion of his plenary portion as Paramatma, is situated everywhere. He is the super soul of all demigods, all human beings, all animals, and everywhere. One should therefore know that as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one has the duty to render service to the Supreme. Everyone should be engaged in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. This is recommended in this verse. Everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by Rishikesh, the master of the sense. That's important. If we do our job, that should be our inner mentality, which Srila Prabhupada is giving here. Everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by Rishikesh, the master of the senses. Because it's a super soul who gives you this situation. Krishna, according to our previous karma, wants us in that situation. So he gives us this particular occupation. And from that occupation, we worship the Lord by our activities. And we should think like that. Krishna, by the will of Krishna, I'm in that position. And therefore, from this position, I use it to serve the Lord. And by the result of the work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, should be worshipped. If one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, then by the grace of the Lord, he comes fully aware of everything. Then your consciousness raises. And that's the perfection of life. But Krishna is going now to speak a verse for a second time, the same verse, two times the same verse in Bhagavad Gita. Shreyas Svadharma Vihuna Paradharmas Vanustitas Svabhavanyatam Karma Kovanat Nautikilbisham. It's better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So everyone has prescribed duties. Prescribed duties are according to one's own psychophysical nature. And one must perform actions for which he has the guna and karma. For which he has a great desire to do that, and for which he has the capability. So one should not imitate another's duty. But further, Srila Prabhupada writes, whether one is a Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, it doesn't matter. If he serves by his work the Supreme Personality of God. They are all equal. There's no difference from the eyes of Krishna. Well, whatever position that you are. Yes. Anything done for personal gratification is a cause of bondage. The conclusion is that everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired. That's the point. He should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Lord. Because Krishna says, one can say, I'm not good for anything. This is my so-called occupation, but I'm not good in it. So what to do? Krishna answers in 18. Every endeavor is caused by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. So in the conditioned life, all work is contaminated by material nature. These things are necessary, one cannot avoid them. Similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. So in summary, Krishna has said, one can achieve full Krishna consciousness if one has understanding that my occupation is an arrangement by the Supreme Lord, and thus I use my occupation in his service, and I give the results to him. Because one can serve the Lord or please the Lord by one's natural occupation, even if there is some fault. One will not suffer any reaction. But one who gives up this work because there are so-called defects then one should not give it up, because all faults will be purified. That's what Krishna explains here. Now the next section will explain the points when one can give up these prescribed duties. The point where you can give up these prescribed duties means when one is completely purified, then one comes to one's spiritual Svadharma. And that we will start discussing tomorrow. Text 49 onwards. Any further questions? Good. If there are no further questions, then we will continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.